Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of The Standard is the Standard. And no, if you're watching live on YouTube, you know that's not Lance Williams. That is none other than the Bryan Anthony Davis. Bryan is filling in for Lance as Lance is doing some twirly waltz or something like that. I don't know what he's doing out there in California, but he can't do the show. Bryan steps in. Bryan, what's going on?
Well, you know, if he's doing it, Sir Lancelot is doing it suave style. So I wouldn't worry about that. I'm sure it's classy.
Sir Lancelot.
That's Sir Lancelot. That's what I've been calling him. No, I'm doing well, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be on the flagship.
You get called up every now and then. You get the call up. You know, it's just kind of like you're kind of like that pitcher that spends a lot of time between the minors, AAA, and then gets bumped up to the bigs for a start. Then you get sent back down. But we're glad to have you while you're here. All right, let's get down to business, and that is the topic at hand. That is the headline or the title of this episode, and it's a simple question that it got brought up. It got brought up on my show, The Next Man Up, and I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that, Bryan. When did you get to check that out by chance?
No, I have not,
okay.
And
okay.
I'm enjoying your stuff when I get a chance to do it.
It's okay, trust me. So basically, I talked about for an entire 35 minutes about how change is necessary for the Steelers, and one of the things that was brought up from a person in the live chat was, is this team like a legitimate Super Bowl contender? And so Lance then took it a step further and said, well, if Ben Roethlisberger comes back and he is healthy, then I know that's a huge if, but still, well, let's presume that he is healthy. He can throw the ball. His elbow's fine. Are the Steelers a Super Bowl contender if that is the situation? Everything stays the same, basically. But are they Super Bowl contenders if that happens? What do you think?
Wow. The reason I'm saying wow is I'd like to change it and say, yeah, they're definitely a playoff contender, but a Super Bowl contender, that's a bold statement. But if you look at a team like the Patriots, if you look at the fact that, you've got the Ravens and the Chiefs and maybe the Tennessee Titans, this team could compete with a healthy Ben Roethlisberger, and they could go all the way for a lot of reasons, Jeff.
Now, you could definitely give the Dave Schofield stock answer and say, well, it depends on, do they keep Dupree? And what about Javon Hargrave? And what about, yeah, I get all that. But to me, one player, one position, that's quarterback, and that's Ben Roethlisberger, can erase a lot of issues on both sides of the ball. What did we say all season? Score 20 and win, right? I feel like with this offense, even if the offensive line were to lose B.J. Finney and lose Ramon Foster, if Ben Roethlisberger is healthy, 20 points would be within the realm of possibility. We'll put it that way. In other words, I think that they could come closer to 30 on a regular basis than they could, say, 20, which is where they were in 2019. Defensively, if you score more points, it gives them the ability to not feel like they have to be the very, very best all the time. Now, that sounds bad. That sounds like, oh, well, then they would slack off. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that this team, this defense, wouldn't have that pressure. And I don't know if you heard, like, Bud Dupree was very honest after the season, where he said that he did feel the pressure of an offense that was unable to score points and feeling like if they give up one big play, it could be the end of that game. And ultimately the season when it came down the stretch. So do you agree with that sentiment that just that position, the quarterback position, and that one quarterback being Ben Roethlisberger can turn the tides and really make this team complete?
Absolutely, Jeff. I'm going to go as far as, upping the ante and saying that they would be in the divisional round this weekend if they had a player like Case Keenum. If Case Keenum was their quarterback, they're there. I really think if they had Matt Moore, they're there. I think if they had just a quality backup, look at Philadelphia the other day. I would say with the way the Steelers defense is playing, with as good as the Steelers were that stretch, and as bad as the offense was, and they were still winning, that they would have won with McCown also. I mean, they would have won with a quality veteran backup.
Really makes you think that, boy, that they gambled this year. And they got burnt, in my opinion. You go into a year with And they started off going in the year with Joshua Dobbs and Mason Rudolph, not particularly in that order. And we saw what happens when they trade away Joshua Dobbs. Devlin Hodges comes in. No one expects them to have to play that much. And then there you have it. So you think that even though Mike Tomlin in his end of the season press conference and during that time when it's still fresh, when he's that Tuesday press conference, he basically said Mason Rudolph is my guy as the backup quarterback. You think that's logical for 2020, or do you think that this team needs to go out and get an insurance policy in case it's another repeat of 2019?
I've been screaming this for probably about 5 years now, ever since Michael Vick left. And Michael Vick wasn't even a good backup quarterback, but they brought him in because they lost Gradkowski, who was a decent enough backup quarterback. Landry Jones never had it. And when Ben went down and Landry Jones came in, we saw what happened in the playoffs when you had to bring a Ben Roethlisberger back in a wild card game against Cincinnati, and he could barely raise his arm. But he had to come back in because Landry Jones was that bad and the season was on the line. And for somehow crazy stuff happened. Crazy stuff on defense with Ryan Shazier making everything happen. And then just the chicanery with three of the craziest players to ever play the game, Pac-Man, Perfect, and Mr. Third and Fifth. With all that happening, it just so happened that the planets aligned and Pittsburgh won that game. But there was no way they were winning that game with Landry Jones. And that goes forward. It keeps on going forward. They would have not won this season. They weren't winning this season with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. And we saw what Duck Hodges did. And Duck Hodges played admirably for his skill level. I mean, being the fourth man in. That was the guy that you needed to come in and save your season. And he did that to an extent. And then people saw tape. Coaches saw tape. It was all over. And he reached a shelf life. That's exactly what happened. I mean, if they want to bet the farm on Mason Rudolph, but they have Ben Roethlisberger back, they're missing the boat if they don't bring in a guy at least number 3 that just has experience, like a 10-year guy that could come in at number 3 and see if you need them to bail him out.
Now, you just said not too long ago that if Case Keenum was the Steelers quarterback, they'd be playing in the divisional round.
Absolutely.
Right now. And I am not disagreeing with you at all. Let me ask you this question. If Landry Jones was still on the Steelers roster, would they be in the playoffs?
They might be in the playoffs.
I'm not saying divisional round. I'm not saying they win a game, but would they have folded like a cheap lawn chair down the stretch with Landry Jones at quarterback?
Yeah. No, I think they would have made it. They would have made it because I think at this point he is better. He is better than what you had in Duck Hodges, and I think with the experience, and he's probably the quarterback position, you gain some smarts and you gain some awareness, and poor Duck Hodges he didn't have it, and he didn't know what to do when they were throwing everything at him. And part of that was the coaching staff handcuffing him. I thought they handcuffed both backup quarterbacks the entire time. So, I think he would have made it there. I don't think they would have went far. Somebody in the live chat just put the name up there, Hoyer. Yeah, I take Hoyer. And, Ali just said Keenum is a bum. Keenum got a team to the NFC Championship game a couple years ago. And with a good defense, but Pittsburgh Steelers defense was better than that Viking defense.
He's a quarterback that's going to epitomize the just don't kill us mentality, and that's exactly what Tomlin was saying this year was, look, if the quarterback doesn't turn the ball over, we have a really good chance of winning. And down the stretch, it would have happened, but the streak continues, and now that'll go into 2020. So, okay. Here's a topic at hand, and this is something that Lance wanted us to discuss, and I thought this was right in your wheelhouse, Brian, because I know your feelings.
You say feelings. It's a Randy Fichtner.
No. It's actually not. It's a Mike Tomlin question. Question.
Okay.
Lance wants to know why, and I have my own theory on this, but I want to hear your thoughts first. Why have the Steelers been so mum on Ben Roethlisberger's injured elbow, because technically they haven't even told anyone publicly what the injury was. All we know is that it wasn't Tommy John. That is correct, right? It's not Tommy John, but no one knows exactly what the injury was, right?
Yeah, they never said it. In fact, the only person that I heard say it was the guy sitting on my couch, Dave Schofield, when it happened. He goes, "Oh, that's probably Tommy John," and he plays a doctor on on blogs.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Yes, I mean they're always secretive. Everything is a state secret with this team. And we talked about it, how that's kind of annoying. But I mean, yes, I learned that you don't tip off your competition, but I don't really know why they're keeping this completely quiet. I mean, I consider us stockholders. Steeler fans are stockholders, even though we don't have that certificate. And when I say stockholders, we're buying tickets, we're buying merchandise, we're doing everything we can to support the team. We'd like to know what's going on. Now, there's going to be a lot of people, and I'm not even going to look. A lot of people are going to disagree with me that we don't deserve to know anything. But I mean, come on, you cheer for a guy for 15 years. You want to know what's up with his health. And then you see him looking like a Macy's Day balloon on the sideline. And yeah, I know Ravens fans. Yeah, why is a guy that's 120 pounds bigger than Ben Roethlisberger saying that, which isn't true? I weigh less. But what I'm saying is, I mean, he looks out of shape right now. He doesn't look like he's ready to come back. I believe Ben Roethlisberger will get himself in shape if he's coming back. I have no doubt. But it makes you wonder when you see all this and they're not saying a word if it's a big deal. But when they're saying that, but it also leads me to believe that they really think he's coming back if they're saying, yeah, Mason's our number 2 next year. Were those the words? He's our number 2?
Well, he basically said he's our backup.
Okay, then they think he's coming back.
Yeah.
If not, get a backup plan. Get a plan. Bring somebody in. I don't care if Mason Rudolph is your future. That's fine. Bring somebody in to challenge him with experience. I don't care if it's Mr. Butt Fumble. Bring him off the couch.
No.
No, but hey, surely he's better than what you would have gotten last year. And everybody's going to laugh at me for that. And I have no problem. But the thing about it is, if you have somebody with experience that could understand those defenses that they're throwing at you, then you might have a better chance. Now, I don't think Mark Sanchez would have gotten you too much farther. I think he would have gotten you into the playoffs. He would have gotten that one extra win.
It'll be interesting. I do think when it comes back to the injury, why are they so mum on everything? The first and foremost is that when they put him on injured reserve, they don't have to update his status at all. And we talked about that with Sean Davis when he was on with his torn labrum and things like that. I think secondly, it's that there's nothing to report right now. Ben can't throw. He still has a brace on his arm. You saw that brace throughout the season. It got significantly smaller as time went on. He continued some rehab, I'm sure. But Mike Tomlin talked a little bit about it at the end of the year press conference regarding essentially the fact that February, I want to say it was late February, is when he has a checkup that's going to be really big, really important in terms of him getting the green light to start and throw again of some way, shape, or form. So I think that's why, I was curious as to what your thoughts were on that, but I honestly don't think there's anything to report because they don't know anything right now. His arm, if you looked at the actual brace itself before, the jackets went on and all that stuff because it got cold, it was a brace that immobilized his elbow joint so that he couldn't move it. And that's very common with those type of injuries. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. Cody Marshall puts $2 in the tip jar. He says Marcus Mariota could be a good choice, possibly. I saw an article on ESPN Plus today that said that they think he's going to go to a place like Chicago, where there's an actual viable spot to possibly start, kind of like the Ryan Tannehill to Tennessee, where he went to Tennessee. No one thought he was going to be the starter, and then it turns out he gets an opportunity. So that's all guesswork. But Mariota, if he was the right price, would you have a problem with that? I wouldn't. I don't think he'd be a bad backup.
At this point, I wouldn't have a problem with anybody with experience, with starting experience. Look, I saw somebody, and I know it was a joke. Somebody put it on there, bring back Batch. Okay, no, I'm not advocating to bring back Batch. But look, when Charlie Batch was brought in 2002, he was an ex-starter. No one thought that was a sexy hire because 2003, excuse me, because you already had you had Tommy Maddox still on the roster, and now you're bringing in Batch. That's a whole heck of a lot of experience, and that's something to draw from. The young guys that are cheap and having two of them, that doesn't really help you. One's fine, but I don't consider a guy like Dobbs and Dobbs backing you up and Mason Rudolph backing you up. I don't expect that to help you because that's not experience. Have a grizzled veteran. Somebody put Fitzpatrick on there. Yeah, bring a guy in like Fitzpatrick. Have somebody there that if it goes south, you could plug them in. I know I keep saying that over and over, but you don't gamble with. It's cool to have the future, but don't gamble with your present because you have a guy in waiting.
Well, if they didn't learn from 2019, then my theory is they never will learn. Period. So if they don't sign someone this offseason, then it's just status quo. All right, let's go to our next segment here, and that is yes or no, who will be on the roster in 2020?
Ooh, I like this.
So, and before we get into that, Dennis puts $2 in the tip jar. Says, by the way, recipes. George Pearls, he was the defensive coach for Chuck Noll and was one of the masterminds of that Steel Curtain defense. Passed away, I want to say at 85 today. So
yes, 85 years old and a long time coach at Michigan State, head coach at Michigan State.
Yes,
just a legend in the game. So rest in peace.
Absolutely, he has a lot to do with that Steeler defense. So if you don't know much about him, if you're a young fan, go look it up, read about him. He was a heck of a football coach. All right, so yes or no, who will be on the roster in 2020? You can expound on this, or you can just give a simple yes or no. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can chime in the live chat as well and let us know what you think. Will this player be on the team in 2020, or will he be playing somewhere else? Let's start. This is a tough one. Javon Hargrave, nose tackle. Yes or
no?
No. Okay. All right. I'm going to say no as well. I've said it for a long time that I don't think they can keep Dupree and Hargrave. And that leads us to our next one. Bud Dupree.
Yes.
Okay, now I have to ask another question. That is, how do you think they get him? Do you think they franchise tag him? Do you think they give him a long-term deal? How do you see them keeping Bud Dupree in the fold?
You know, I was thinking about this. Expect him a long-term deal first. Try to see if they can go ahead and do that instead of messing around with the franchise tag and having to revisit this next year. Because the franchise tag works for 1 year. We've seen it not work for a second. I know that was a special circumstance with the Le'Veon Bell situation. But I would think that they're going to try very hard and to go ahead and wrap them up and just keep them and know they have somebody there.
I am going to go the opposite route, and I'm going to franchise tag him first. And that's going to keep him from hitting free agency. That's important. And once you franchise tag him, then I'm okay. All right, Dupree, we need to figure out what are you looking for in terms of years, money per year, and let's see if we can get this done. Everything that I've read so far about when Dupree was asked about the franchise tag, he basically said, look, if I get franchise tagged, I'm going to show up and I'm going to continue to play. It's basically not going to be a Le'Veon Bell situation. That's what he is saying. Now, he might just be saying everything that he should, but ultimately that's what he's saying. All right, let's go to the next one. Ramon Foster, the big Ragu.
Oh, the Ragu is done. I do not expect him back.
I think he's a cap casualty as well. I think they can save him as $4 million if they cut him. I think he's gone. I don't know if he plays again. He might be one of those players that gets picked up by a team, plays for a year or two, and then is done.
He'll be in Arizona. For half a season, for like 6 games.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. You're probably right. So we said so far, to recap for those that might just be joining us, Hargrave, we both agreed, is gone. Dupree, we said, is going to stay. How they keep him is a minor difference. We both said that Ramon Foster is gone. This one I think is obvious, but we'll ask it anyway. Sean Davis.
Wow, you know what? I'm expecting him to be gone.
I'm surprised that wasn't a real rapid fire answer. I feel like that's the foregone conclusion that he's not back.
Yeah, I mean, most people would say that, but he's done nothing. He has done nothing. He's not signable by another team right now. So if you want to bring in a veteran on the cheap as a backup, you can get him pretty cheap, but I don't expect them to do it.
I mean, it would have to be a situation, and I'm trying to think of a player that this has happened. And I know there is one that's been relatively recent that I just can't think of it for whatever reason, where that has been given the green light to test free agency, went around and went visited teams, talked to teams, and eventually ended up coming back because he realized that nothing out there was better than the offer that was given him. So maybe that's what happens with Sean Davis, because he's coming off of an injury-plagued season, because he's never really seemed to be comfortable in the defense in whatever role they had him in. Maybe they can keep him on the cheap, but it would have to be really cheap if you're going to get a guy like Bud Dupree on a long-term deal or something like that. But I think Sean Davis is gone. Here's another one. This could be a cap casualty, and that's Anthony Chickillo.
He's another guy that has naked pictures of somebody at this point. You know, the problem is, well, here's the thing. It might depend on Bud. Because if Bud's gone, just don't think they're cutting Chickillo. I know that's $5 million. Wasn't the deal $5 million, or is he getting $2.5 a year?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't want to say the wrong answer, but I'll have to look it up.
I would think that he'd be gone, but they love this guy for some reason. And I think if it might depend on Dupree. That's going to sound crazy, but you lose Dupree, and then you get rid of Chickillo. What have you got? You've got a Denny, Skipper, and TJ.
Well, there's people have been pining away for Skipper to get a shot for a while now.
Yeah, but we've seen this, and something I've learned, and something we'll talk about in August, is the fact when we're griping about the 53rd man on the roster. At the end of the day, it's really not going to shape your season. Those guys are getting hats anyways. And so, we're pining for these guys. We figured the next step for Adeniji, and he was relatively healthy enough this year to play a lot, and we didn't see a lot of them. So a lot of that stuff is fool's gold, if you ask me. Somebody said there has to be a free agent better than Chickillo. I'm sure there is, but comes with a price tag too.
I think that Chickillo stays, just because normally that's someone I say he's gone, but they keep him around for some reason. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
And Jeff, could I say something real quick?
Yeah, go.
I love our fans in the live chat. I love everybody. Everybody wants everybody cut. Somebody mentioned they want Edmonds cut. There's no way. If you didn't cut Artie Burns 2 years ago when it was a rookie deal, you're not cutting Edmonds. Everybody wants the guys like Chickillo, Edmund. They want Barron. I'm sure. These are guys that don't get cut because they're still cheap enough to kick around. Keep around. But if you're not the perfect player, everybody said, all right, get rid of him. Get rid of this guy. They want Connor cut. They want everybody cut.
Yeah. And it comes down to some of it's performance based, some of it's salary cap based. Ramon Foster didn't have a great year, but at the same time, he's not worth what they were paying him. So that's a cap casualty. Chickillo could be a cap casualty. He still is a solid special teams player. And that goes to our next one. That's Tyler Matakevich, who is now out of his rookie contract? Does he come back, or does he go somewhere else? What do you think?
I could actually see him. He reminds me of Sean Morey. Sean Morey
Okay, I
being a
remember that.
special teams guy that was really valuable, that could go ahead and get a contract somewhere else. Not anything amazing, but good enough. Almost like the LJ Fort thing. Look at LJ from last year. Even though he got cut, he could very well be in the Super Bowl this year. Now that he's in Baltimore, and as soon as Baltimore got him 2 or 3 weeks, they're like, we're giving him more money, and they extended him, and they kept him around. They gave him a contract right away. So I could see Metakevich, even though he's not as good as LJ Fort, but for what he brings to you, if somebody wants a special teams demon and a guy that got all pro, 1 or 2 all pro votes, it might have been just one, but who got an all pro vote, I could see him possibly, commanding some money. So I don't think that he's going to stay. If he's not offered a whole lot, they'll bring him in.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Bring him back.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a tough one based on the position and the fact that they're ridiculously thin there. Do they pick up their club option on Vance McDonald? It's going to cost them. It's going to cost them around $5 to $6 million if they do pick it up. You think they do?
Name me a tight end that you can get for that kind of money. Think about the kind of money that Jesse James got last year. He got $25 million last year from Detroit. The problem with Vance, he gets hurt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
However,
and they haven't been throwing it to him. So, but
if you have Ben back, he's thrown to him. That's played 14 games this year.
The ultimate caveat.
So there's really, with one more year on his deal, I don't see them not getting rid of him.
Yeah, I definitely see your thought process here, and that is because you're not going to find a lot of tight ends that are cheaper than Vance McDonald. But then I look at it and say, well, what is his value? What is his market value right now? Is it even $5 to $6 million a year? And based on what? He had a really bad year this year because he had no quarterback throwing him the ball. He got hurt again. I'm just going to say that if they decided to do this, and that is they're going to sign Nick Vannett, get him cheaper than what they would be paying Vance McDonald. You let Vance McDonald walk. You have Gentry, who's coming into his second year, and you're looking for a tight end in the draft or in free agency that can come in and block, essentially. I would be fine with that. I think that's actually, if I'm predicting what's going to happen, I think that's how it's going to happen. And so I'm going to say that he's gone. I don't think they pick up the club option. I think he has been a royal frustration for this organization based on his health, period. So if it went down the other way, the way you predict, I wouldn't be angry or upset. But at the same time, I think that the Steelers can save some money by going this way. And so we'll see how that pans out. And the last one here that we want to go over, speaking of money and saving some money, they could do so with Mark Barron. Mark Barron being a guy that they signed to I think it was a 3-year contract, but it was definitely a deal where they looked at it and you could see, okay, they could cut him after year 1 and save some money. What are your thoughts on Mark Barron?
I think they are bringing him back. And keep in mind, this is what I think. I'm thinking with my head. With my heart, I don't really want to keep him around. I don't think he was as horrible as everybody else thinks he was. He had some moments that he really shined. He was the weak link on a fantastic defense. So was Edmonds. But those were the two rough spots. But I expect them to keep him, actually. I'd rather them not. But we watched this team. Jeff, we've a lot of the deals that we think that they should make and the guys that they should get rid of, they don't. We thought they should have gotten rid of Burns a long time ago, but the way his deal was structured and being a rookie on a rookie contract, you knew they weren't going to do it. So we thought Chicolo should have been gone a while ago. McCullers, we thought he should have been gone a long time ago. And I'm surprised McCullers isn't on your list.
Yeah. I guess he should be. Do you think he'll be back? Of course he's going to be back.
Yeah. I mean, he might as well just buy some land. He's staying because, like I said, I mean, maybe he's done some. Maybe he has some blackmail.
He's got dirt on someone. He's got dirt on someone. So, I mean, Barron, I think, is going to be back. Barron's mistakes, unfortunately, in 2019 were highlighted because a lot of times they were plays that went for first downs, or they were plays that resulted in touchdowns. And when fans see that, they immediately sculpt this image in their mind of a poor player. I don't think he was as bad. I'm not saying he was great, but I don't think he was as bad, like you mentioned, Brian, as most people think. And so I think he'll be back next year. I think that his versatility, they could probably use his versatility a little bit more in the second go around, and maybe moving him to safety a little bit, using him in sub packages. I think they can be creative with Barron. I think that they actually bring him back. And if they decided to cut him, I wouldn't be shocked. But at the same time, that's just my opinion, and we're all entitled to our own. Okay, last question. This is not a specific player, but more of a positional thing. And that is, what would you say is the Steelers' biggest position of need heading into the offseason? And that can be free agency. That can be the NFL draft. What position, offense or defense, do you say is the biggest position of need?
I'm thinking running back.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, explain yourself a little bit, because I talked about this on my show the other day, and I said that if you have a healthy James Conner and the backs that you have on the roster right now, which is Conner, Jalen Samuels, Benny Snell Jr., Kareth White, if you want to go down to Trey Edmonds and Ralph Webb, you can. I just felt that if they were to change their philosophy and go into more of a running back by committee, that could be a pretty good group. But I'm willing to listen to you and what you think and why you said running back is the biggest position of need.
Well, at this point, it wouldn't have been. But at this point, Conner, who I absolutely love, he has – how many times did he get hurt last year? I think it was 5. He went out of games, and we didn't see him for a long time. Of course, I mean, you definitely need a quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger's not back. You need a quarterback. So I'm thinking that you need a running back. You need a bell cow. And I understand the back by committee, but last year, I mean, when Conner was gone, the back by committee really wasn't working. You got a little bit out of Benny Snell. You got nothing. You really didn't get much out of Jalen last year at all. Yeah. I do like the Kareth White situation, but I think you need some stability at that position. I don't think Conner is long for the team. I'm not saying cut him. Definitely don't cut him. But when I'm saying when his rookie deal is gone, I really don't expect him to come back.
No, I agree with you. I was watching, and I know someone in the live chat will be able to help me out here. I was watching a lot of college football over our break when I was sick, and you're just sitting there watching television because you can't do anything else. And there's a running back from Oklahoma State that I really liked that is a bigger guy. They compared him a lot to Le'Veon Bell in terms of his patience. I'm sure that someone in the live chat will remind me of his name, but really impressed by him. And he's a guy that might be around in the midpoint of the second round, or maybe the Steelers have to trade up to get him. But I could see running back being on there. And they're saying his name is Chuba Hubbard. What a name. I mean,
whoa. Can you imagine? I could see him as a Steeler now because everybody would, this guy's going to see Chuba play. I mean, Chuba would be the guy. It would be Chuba T.
And,
In fact, get it up right now.
Chuba t-shirts would be everywhere, get up the Chuba. Yeah, that's it's Chuba. They're saying it's pronounced Chuba. That's not as funny.
But remember, we're Pittsburgh. So
Exactly.
I mean, the greatest day of my life was as a blogger here was when they went and picked up Chukwuma Okorafor. I'm like, I cannot wait until we hear this name. And then someone says, "Oh, it's Chooks." I'm like, "No, don't call him Chooks."
Nothing would ever top when Chris Fumatu Mafala was the running back in Pittsburgh, and Myron Cope would just
One bad Malafala. That one guy was great.
Some people are saying that Chuba is most likely going to go in the first round, in which case the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have a pick there. So scratch that idea.
A guy everybody loves is J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio, the Ohio State University.
Well, but he's going to go in the first round. He's a really good back.
You know what? I'm not sure if I mean, you don't have the Zekes. We're not seeing the running back. Some years you just don't see the running backs go early anymore. So it just depends. I mean, remember the year you had Eddie Lacy and Le'Veon Bell go, and Giovanni Bernard might have been the one that went the earliest, and that was still in the second round, and that was 2013. So, I mean, there's a possibility that you can get him in the second round. Maybe not as far down as they pick, but there's a possibility. I mean, guys drop. Ollie is saying Jonathan Taylor, and I've heard a lot of people mention him as well from Wisconsin. Wisconsin back. Those guys are made for Pittsburgh, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So you said running back, and I'm not going to disagree. But if there's a position that's going to trump that, what position would be, let's say, your 1A, 1B, or your number 2?
I'm still looking for an outside linebacker, another edge rusher.
Even if you keep Dupree, because you're going to know that by that time.
Well, I'm looking for that in the draft.
No, I get that. So you're saying that you're looking pass rusher for the future.
Okay. If you're looking at free agency, you probably need to bring in an offensive lineman at this point.
Big time. Yeah. They're not going to be able to bring. I don't think they're going to be able to bring back Finney. I think he's going to cost them way too much money, and they're not going to have that money to give him. Not that they don't want to. It's a situation just like Kelvin Beachum and Chris Hubbard, where they played so well and they were so valuable that they got a big contract with other teams, and I think that'll happen with Finney too. So we'll see.
Well, can I ask you this? I hope I'm not hijacking, but if you look at the offensive line. Let's start from the left side. Big Al,
yep.
He's coming back, regressed a little bit. Foster, we think he's gone, so that's an open spot there. The logical guy to move in there, mentioned a guy like Filer. Then you have some regression in Pouncey. At right guard, you've got still the best DeCastro. We talked about the offensive line. DeCastro, he hasn't lost anything as far as I'm concerned. And at right tackle, at this point, you're probably looking at Zach Banner
or Chooks.
I'm kind of thinking that Zach would probably win that role. The only reason that Chooks started that game for Filer is because they already had Zach Banner implanted as that eligible guy that had his role, and I think they probably thought it was easier to bring Chooks in.
Well, they said they wanted to develop a plan for pass protection, obviously going against Aaron Donald and the Rams, and that's why Filer was bumped to left guard. And like you said, they wanted to keep him in his normal spot. But it'll be interesting to see that offensive line and how it shapes up. They do have some options there. But maybe they go out and get a free agent, or maybe they get a young player. I'm not suggesting the last time they had a player that they drafted in the first round, the last time they drafted an offensive lineman that came in and started right away would that be David DeCastro?
Gilbert started quickly in 11. Then it was DeCastro in 12. DeCastro took a few weeks to get in there. I mean,
he was in there by week 1, though. He was in there by week 1.
then it would be DeCastro, because Mike Adams was the
Awful.
guy they thought could do something, and they picked him very high, and he didn't do much of anything. So the one guy that came in right away, and not right away, but in his rookie season, that nobody expected, was Kelvin Beachum.
Yeah,
come in and play.
He was a 6th or 7th round pick, I think.
Yeah, he was one. They had 4 7. I think they had 4 7th rounders that year.
And Dave Schofield brings up a good point. I forgot about this. That DeCastro did get hurt his rookie year. I remember it was a preseason game. I think it was in Buffalo, and he got hurt. He did come back and played. He didn't end his season, I don't believe. But so, yeah, there you have it. So the Steelers have some team needs to address, and they're going to be doing this in free agency as well as the NFL draft. And a lot is going to depend upon what they do with their own free agents. The new league year starts March 18th. But technically, as of right now, on January 8th, 2020, they can negotiate contracts with their own players. So they could absolutely get Bud Dupree locked up if they wanted to, which I don't think will happen. Or they could, renegotiate a contract or two to kind of give them some cap space. It's going to be much needed based on the fact that the Ben Roethlisberger's contract is going to hit at the same time that Mr. Third and Fifth's contract is going to leave the books. So it's going to kind of be a push, so to speak. But we will talk about this a lot coming up on all of our shows. And basically, it's the offseason for the Steelers. And so we're going to dabble in some of this draft needs and maybe bring up some draft prospects once we get through the through the playoffs, I should say. But this is the time in the show where we have about 5 to 10 minutes left, and we want to answer some of your questions. So if you have a question and you're watching live on YouTube, you can always fire away. If you want to use the super chat feature, you can. It's where you donate some money to the show. The money goes directly to the show. It's where we're able to do things like get these new microphones for all of our hosts. And we appreciate all the hard-earned money that you all throw our way. But you can help us out in a lot of different ways. And some of it has nothing to do with money. And that's just by liking the video. So if you've watched this far and you haven't given this video a like, then my goodness, it doesn't cost anything. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, set up your notifications so that you don't miss a show. And that's how you can really help the program in terms of getting us some exposure on our YouTube channel. And if you're listening in audio platform, give us a good review. We appreciate it. Snowman puts $2 in the tip jar using the super chat features. Says, will you guys have a draft show? Yes. Are going to do a draft show. I at least want to wait until after the college football season has completely wrapped up. And is that this weekend, Brian? That's next Monday, I think.
This coming Monday, is the
championship. So we'll wait till that all wraps up, and then once you get into like Senior Bowl stuff, some of the All-Star games, we'll definitely start doing some draft prep. Who's going to host that show? Yikes! I don't watch a lot of college football, so if we did, I would be asking more questions and answering. So that might not be a good mix for me. Rod Young, here we go. He says, Jeff, BAD, would you get a defensive tackle for our 2nd round pick? I think you'd get 1st round talent. So in other words, if a defensive tackle is available in the 2nd round when the Steelers pick, Brian, would you be okay going defensive line?
Absolutely. If he's 1st round talent, and you think that you're going to have a hole there, because you're going to have a hole there.
Well, yeah. And again, it's funny. We talk about Ben Roethlisberger and how his injury is so key. How big of an injury in terms of recovery is Stephon Tuitt? Because if Stephon Tuitt comes back and he's healthy, well, then Javon Hargrave wouldn't be used that much anyways. So I don't know. What are you laughing at, Brian?
Michael O'Malley.
Oh, so is he? Since you performed the surgery on Ben, what time frame do you?
Well,
that's a good question.
The Steelers have given me a gag order not to mention anything of the surgery that I performed. I can't even mention it. So I'm thinking that we'll know a little bit more, probably by 2027.
George puts $2 in the tip jar and says, "How about a mock draft?"
Hey, we did them.
Did we do that in podcast form last year?
Yes, we did. We did the three of us, not you, but Dave on The Hangover. We had the Hangover mock draft.
Yes, you guys should do that again.
And it was a whole lot of fun. It was Dave, Tony, and myself. And that's when the audio was just a total train wreck. So it's not going to be like that next year. That was in the Blog Talk days.
Oh my gosh, man. That is just, I think back to those days and people that might have just found our shows for whatever reason. Maybe you just found them on YouTube. Maybe you found us in audio, like on Spotify. You have no idea what it was like. And the only thing I'd love to duplicate, Bryan, in the live chat does a pretty good job with this. I miss the callers. Like when Bryan and I did the hangover, the very first Steelers hangover, we took callers. How funny would it be to get Vito Mankin from New Jersey on the show? And those are go back to those Blog Talk days. They know Vito because he was a regular.
You know what? We were celebrating when we saw Melvin up there because Melvin came back. We hadn't seen him in a while. And we were celebrating when we saw Ken because those were our Blog Talk guys and other guys like Nick from Marietta and Bryce from Brooklyn.
I remember Bryce.
And I haven't heard anything from Bryce in a long time either. But Vito, we used to call him the Hall of Fame caller. And answer the phone, you knew his area code, but it's like, "Good evening, gentlemen." And he'd start off and he would say his name from Jersey and then he'd get started and you're like, when they'd lose, he had such a soothing voice that he would calm you down. So I wish we had some audio.
He would calm you down. He'd also always bring up about how if this was a real job, he would always say, "Look, if this was a real job, it would not be acceptable for you to have to perform like that." And
you know what?
Do you remember the time that he was on hold and we brought him on the air and he was yelling at his kids and stuff?
I don't remember that, but you know what? I think I have his email somewhere.
Do you really?
I think I do. I'd have to look for it. I'm gonna reach out.
You should. You definitely should. Get him on the hangover, and I mean, that would be great to see. I don't even know what he looks like because we only heard his voice. And
everybody thought different things, and that's the magic of radio. It's funny, when I first got into radio back in 1990-91, I'd work midnight to 6 at a top 40 radio station. And when you're working midnight to 6, you're bored. You've read every single thing that you've had. I was in college. I did all of my homework. I did everything I needed. Then the phone would light up at 3 a.m. and you didn't care who it was. You were just talking to them. and then you would get, they always talk about it, and you can tell I've got the face for radio. I'm fine with that. But you could tell they'll call you up and you'd have some people flirting with you and you're bored. You don't care. So you're just talking on the phone and between Mariah Carey songs. And then they're saying, "So what do you look like?" And I'm like, "All right, you know what? You tell me." And back then I was probably about 140. Dark hair. I mean, I was in a lot better shape. I'm not this mess that you see now at 48. But back then, you're talking, I'm 20, I'm 21 at that time. And so I'm like, "You tell me." And I got 2 answers. They'd say, "You're probably, medium height, brown hair, brown eyes." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, maybe." And then the other answer that every 9 times out of 10, I'd get this answer: "You're 6'4", blonde, blue eyes." I'm like, "Yep."
Oh my goodness. That's too funny. And someone said, I think it's Cody Marshall, said, "If you want to see Jeff with hair, go back 2 seasons on YouTube." Yes, if you go back 2 seasons, you'd see Jeff with hair, and it would be very different because I remember Lance, remember with the Hangouts when this was how we recorded, remember you could just see his face. And he said he wasn't going to show his face until the Steelers won or something. I don't know. Sir Lancelot. But Rod Young says, I'd love to call in. Why did you stop taking calls? It's not that we stopped taking calls. A lot of people said, someone said earlier that it was raw, like the Blog Talk Radio, and it was. But we also got a lot of complaints and bad reviews because of the sound quality, and there was a delay between the hosts. It was almost like you had to wait 3 seconds and then they could talk, so you weren't talking all over everyone. We've upgraded everything and went to YouTube for sound quality. Now I can look into our streaming service now and see if they can work with us maybe and find a way to get callers to come in. I don't know. That would be pretty funny. It'd be pretty cool. But at the same time, it would be Vito Mankin from New Jersey. Hello, gentlemen. Hello, gentlemen.
I would love to hear that voice again. That's that was one of those guys. He's like my second dad. He might be younger than me. You never know.
Oh gosh, those were the days. Those are the days, man. So, all right, Brian, anything to say to the fan base before we call it a show?
Great football this weekend. I know it's not the Steelers. I want them in there too, but there is 4 fantastic matchups.
Yeah, I
can't wait to watch these games. This is what I call the perfect vasectomy weekend. Because I used to always say that I used to work with urologists in my job. Now I'm in I'm in the same field, but I'm different set of doctors. And I'd talk to them. They'd be like, March Madness, we always get people that want to get their vasectomies then, because they could sit on the couch, because we tell them, you sit on the couch with a bag of peas and you don't move. And so this is the weekend that you go ahead and you just you get it done on Wednesday. Then you sit there all weekend. Don't let anybody near you, especially on your lap. Don't let the dogs or the kids on your lap. My wife had me I was planning to do this exact same thing. And my wife's like, well, we got to do the deductible. So we got to do it right before Christmas. So see if you can go get it scheduled. I'm like, all right, I'll go get it scheduled. And then here I was playing Santa 2 days later. Oh, it was absolute torture. Santa's like, ho, ho, oh! Yeah. But
well, I had it done in the summer, and I was trying to do it
in your chair.
Yeah. I was trying to do it over the Masters weekend. That was me.
Yeah, there you go, because that's your deal.
That is my deal. And I never miss the Masters, and I sit there and I just veg out for 4 days, basically. So that's a good point. Some really good games, and we're going to talk about those games on the Steelers preview tomorrow night, and that'll be myself, Brian, and Dave Schofield. We'll talk about predict. A lot of people have been saying, hey, who do you think is going to win the games? Tune in tomorrow. You'll get our predictions for all those games and who will be the representatives in the AFC and NFC championships. This is in my opinion, the best weekend, but it's also very disappointing. It's very depressing because it's after this weekend, you only get 2 games on one day. And then after that, it's just the Super Bowl is all that's left. And then you have the long off season. And there are different stepping stones like free agency and the NFL draft and then mini camp and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately it's just like, man, it's coming to an end. And even though the Steelers aren't in it, I love watching football. It's one of the few sports that I can just sit and watch anytime. Any team, doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And this is the 8th anniversary of one of those divisional weekends. I went to that. Do you know what it is?
I'm sorry, say that again. You kind of broke up a little bit.
So this is the anniversary. This is the 8th anniversary of one of the most disappointing divisional weekends. Today.
8 years. Go ahead and say it.
Look at Dave Schofield's bookshelf because it's Timmy Tebow time.
Oh boy, that was rough. Wasn't that wild card weekend though?
That wild card weekend. However, it was on this date. It was on the 8th.
Okay. Yeah. That was a killer. Ike Taylor got abused by Demaryius Thomas on an inside slant route.
I'll never forget that. And that was the new overtime rules. I'm like, okay, the new overtime rules. So you have a chance. And then the 80 yards, you're like, oh, wait, that's over.
I always tell the story that was the game where afterwards I was so angry and I didn't have the responsibilities of the website at the time. And my wife said, "Hey, we had people over at the house for some reason." And she goes, "I need you to take this trash bag out." I said, "All right, fine, I'll do it." So I'm taking it out and I see I have this Steelers mailbox cover on my mailbox. And I'm looking at this thing and it's kind of faded. And I'm like,
I remember that one.
These mother, you know what's, they pissed me off so much. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rip this mailbox cover right off now in the month of January. Well, come to find out that glue hardens a lot in the winter. I'm out there, and I'm just like tugging on this. I almost ripped the mailbox out before I actually took the cover off. I only got about half it off, and I said, "Screw this! It's not even worth it." And I went inside. I was just all ticked off. I like to tell myself that I'm a little bit more mature at this stage of my life at 36, about to be 30.
Now.
I can. Cool. I do. It was after that I sat down and said, "Man, why am I getting so angry about stuff I have no control over?" Like that's when it was kind of like an epiphany for me. I was like, man, I have no control over this whatsoever. Why is this controlling my life so much? So there you go.
Cue man in the mirror. Jeff's talking to the man in the mirror.
We had a hard talk. We had a hard talk.
I'm asking him to make a change.
How many times did you have to play that on your
Actually,
rotation? That was probably too early.
Yeah, that was 88. So I started in 90. Wow, I could tell you Everything I Do for You by Bryan Adams.
Yeah.
My gosh, I think it's still playing in my head.
That was my first CD ever, by the way.
The Robin Hood soundtrack?
No. Bryan Adams, Waking Up the Neighbors. My very first compact disc from BMG Music. And I was like, oh, got it. Remember it was in they had the big box before? It was just like, it was, I was really pumped about that. I'm kind of embarrassed about it now.
Why?
It's Bryan Adams.
It's
like on South Park where they say, "What has Canada ever done to you?" And they're like, Bryan Adams. Like, we have apologized about Bryan Adams.
They gave you the Boitanos, the Adams, all those Bryans.
Yeah, so you had to play a lot of Bryan Adams then. Okay, I'm trying to think.
No, Boitano was American.
No. No, I'm just thinking. I'm thinking of the songs that you would have to play ad nauseum at that time.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I could tell you. One song that's coming to me is Timmy T, One More Try. I don't know if you remember that. Gosh, we would play stuff like crazy, and then this is funny. So there were two songs, and I tell people now that if you ever hear a DJ, it's probably more back then, but if you ever hear a DJ, especially late at night, playing Paradise by the Dashboard Lights by Meatloaf or November Rain, you know what's happening.
Going to the bathroom or sleeping?
They're pooping. They're pooping. Oh no, you don't risk sleep because you don't wake up.
Yeah.
And remember, the phone doesn't ring in radio; it lights up. So
yeah.
I was pledging a fraternity and working midnight to 6 once, and this is back in 91, and I did fall asleep, and I had brothers trying to wake me up, and I would have been fired, but it was actually also the time change, so we had an extra hour, and so I did not. I kept my job, but that's the only time I fell asleep. But you don't put your head down because you're done.
I've always said I'd love to do an hour of radio, just like where I pick the songs. But Chris Boyd, this is a perfect way to end it. The show, because we kind of got off on a tangent. He said, "I still owe Columbia House like $2,000."
They're not coming for you. You're okay.
I know I was not the only one that really. I remember those little stamps. And my dad he was a CD collector, man. We used to get look at what CDs you want, guys. I'm putting in an order for Columbia House. We paid like a penny. I felt like, I don't know.
I'd hide the cards from my mom, but I was more in the cassette day, and I would just hide the cards. And then they're like, "All right, where'd you get that?" I'm like, "Well, we forgot to send the card back." And then they caught on. They caught on.
Of course they did. They always do. So, all right, Bryan, thanks for your time. Thanks for filling in for Sir Lancelot. Make sure you check us out on the Steelers preview tomorrow night and the after party, which will be a lot more of this type of talk. We'll talk about that. But also make sure you, like I said earlier in the show, like the video, subscribe to the channel, set your notifications so you don't miss anything. Give us a good review on audio platforms. We appreciate it. In the meantime, as Lance Williams always says, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Standard is the Standard.